That's right, over the course of 60 days, I tried to put every natural hack I could find to the test to actually see if I could gain real height. At age 34, would this plethora of consistent height increasing techniques actually work? That's what I wanted to try to find out. This is trying to permanently get taller in 60 days, but you gotta focus. To start, to get the most accurate measurement, I actually purchased a height measuring tool. And then to be consistent, I took my beginning height measurement first thing in the morning. Goal is to get that well over 6. In fact, the goal is to be 6 at the end of the day. Can I do this? Let's get taller. So my initial morning measurement was just slightly over 6 feet tall at 183 centimeters. But my starting midday measurement ended up being 181 centimeters.
That's it?
Yeah.
I thought you were 6 feet.
Okay, now real quick guys, I just want to make it clear that I don't believe that height actually really matters when it comes down to certain things regarding success. I mean, look at the two guys from Selling the Sunset. They're probably both under 5'7", bald, and killing it with the ladies and with the money. So this is all for entertainment purposes and honestly to see if I can actually get my height taller. I mean, wouldn't that be just very interesting? Plus, my wife doesn't even really care. She's just joking around. Alright, anyways, my goal was to bring both of these up significantly. So to start on this growing taller quest in my 30s, I thought it would be smart to have my basics covered. Doing my best to get the proper amount of vitamins and minerals to support bone growth. Now, if you do a quick internet search on various height growth maximizer supplements, you will see there are a few key ingredients they have in common. Now, because most of these supposed height maximizing supplements are geared towards children, and because I already had a lot of my own supplements, I decided to formulate my own stack based off of common ingredients, but an adult dose for myself when needed. The first supplement in my stack, vitamin D, but also with K2. Vitamin D helps the body absorb calcium, but K2 activates a protein that helps the mineral bind to our bones. Now, because it is summer when I am doing this experiment, and I have been frequently getting outside, getting at least 15 minutes of sun exposure, I would actually only take vitamin D and K2 on days where it was cloudy or overcast or days where I just did not get outside. That is because the body is supposed to naturally synthesize vitamin D when sunlight gets in contact with the skin. And in my opinion, when I could naturally synthesize vitamin D, that would be much more optimal than taking it in supplement form. But I wanted to leave no gaps, so that's why I added this one in. Now, what about the foundation for bone growth, calcium? Well, looking at this review, it says dietary calcium has been shown to have a greater impact on bone building than supplemental calcium. Now, for that reason, and also because I didn't want to add more supplements if I didn't have to, I figured trying to get the highest quality dietary calcium intake as possible would be the most optimal. So rather than taking a calcium supplement, throughout this month, I consumed raw dairy in the form of Parmesan Reggiano cheese. Fancy. Now, if I was ever cheesed out, there are actually a ton of vegetables that have a high amount of calcium. But because I've been a little bit weary of some vegetables recently, there was really only one that I turned to that I still really like. Bok choy. Apparently around 150 milligrams per cup cooked of calcium, so I'd have a couple of cups here and there. Now, while we're on food, another quest I went on throughout most of the duration of this experiment was having a daily protein shake. I made an entire video on that, check that out. In my opinion, I actually noticed some changes to my physique. However, in regards to this video, you gotta think about it, protein, the building block for the body, it would only make sense that this could have some benefits regarding height growth. Now, multiple studies have found a positive connection between magnesium and bone health, but perhaps more important to me was how magnesium could help me with sleep. More specifically, magnesium has been said to help stimulate GABA in the brain, and GABA, or gamma aminobutyric acid, is said to help with deep sleep, and deep sleep is supposed to be the sleep associated with the most growth hormone production. You see that full circle right there? Yay. Now, I was also adding in zinc as well due to various reasons, but I did find this one study showing a correlation between zinc supplementation and enhanced linear growth, but it was in school-age children, so not exactly someone in their 30s. But zinc being very important, I thought it couldn't hurt. However, I ended up getting rid of the zinc picolinate, and I was going to switch to a zinc glycinate, but instead kind of took a sharp turn towards something a little more natural. This desiccated organ supplement, which was supposed to contain bioavailable forms of zinc, and upon my research was also supposed to contain copper, which is something that if you are supplementing with zinc is a good idea to take as well. So rather than adding in all these supplements, I thought this would kind of be a better, full, well-rounded, more natural, and hopefully better bioavailable supplement. I should also point out that foods like red meat and seafood contain zinc, which I continued to eat as well. Into the first week, these were the basic staple supplements I started with that I thought might have a positive impact on height. But as this experiment continues and I discover more, I will add more. Stay tuned. Now what about some potential height increasing exercises, or some static stretches I should say. So first of all, when I started this experiment, I rigged up what I called a height increasing table. Now it was supposed to kind of act like a decompression table, but the purpose of it wasn't to decompress. The purpose of my height increasing table was to apply a light tension to my lower limbs after an intense lower body workout to theoretically take advantage of the weakened microtraumatic state that the bones were in and slowly over time potentially grow the bones longer, thus getting taller. I actually made an entire video on building this chair and this theory and trying it out in the short term, which, let me just spoil it for you, it didn't seem to show any conclusive effects in the short term, but because this is a longer term experiment and you guys told me I should try this out for longer and I figured it couldn't hurt, I threw this in this experiment to start every day for 30 minutes, even on non-workout days. So this is primarily working on the lower body, but what about spinal decompression, like the inversion table? Why don't I just throw that in too? Well, unfortunately, I actually sold my inversion table quite a while ago, so I did not have that anymore. But I did not want to leave this stone unturned for this experiment, so I rigged up using the stairs and some rope and some Gorilla Tape, my own homemade inversion apparatus. Oh, what is the scariest part? Okay, it's gonna hold. We're alright. And then I spent 5 minutes every day inverting like this. And before you knock on it, it actually worked for decompression. My height rate after 5 minutes of this was measurably higher than before. Dude, just 5 minutes of inverting put me an extra 1/4 inch, probably temporarily. Now remember, this is only temporary decompressed height, but what if doing this day by day after day actually yields some permanent height? You know, think about like a muscle pump, for instance. That's just temporary, but after many workouts, those muscle gains become permanent, or at least as long as the person continues to work out. Now that's actually a very interesting analogy the more you think about it.
Now you're probably wondering how the heck am I gonna get out of this? I'll show you. Ready? You gotta slip a foot out like that, then slip another foot out while holding on here. And then whoa, a little parkour. Oh, there you go, smooth.
Now with all of this additional decompression in the joints happening on a daily basis, was there yet another supplement I could add in that could potentially solidify this decompression? So by week 2, I added in a glucosamine, chondroitin, MSM, and hyaluronic acid oral supplement. Now according to multiple studies, various combinations of these ingredients have been shown to potentially help with more comfortable joints, but typically the people in the studies have osteoarthritis or some other joint discomfort problem. But aside from that, what I'm thinking is if any of these supplements have an effect on the joints, then in addition to all this decompression I've been doing, could some of these ingredients help make my joints more padded, maybe on a microscopic level perhaps, and all the spaces between the joints slightly bigger added up over all the joints? Could that potentially mean more height? I don't know if there's any scientific basis to this other than just my own theory. After measuring in at 183 centimeters on day 1, over the first couple of weeks, my height measurements fluctuated down and up ever so slightly. After 2 to 3 weeks of applying and adding these new techniques in, my average height measurement was approximately 182.9 centimeters, with a range between 182 centimeters and 183.2 centimeters. And now moving on to week 4, where I wanted to implement another technique having to do with sleep, but also having to do with posture and potentially maximizing spinal decompression and thus potentially maximizing height. Sleeping on the floor. Now I made a whole video covering this experience, so if you want to see what happened, check that out. but the idea when it comes to sleeping on the floor is that the floor is cooler than sleeping up on the bed, so maybe that cooler environment can make you sleep better. But also the hypothesis is the floor is harder than an unnatural mattress, and if you can adapt to it, the harder floor is more natural of a surface. But also with this harder surface might come more spinal decompression. So when it comes to height, measuring my height through this experiment, my overall average at the end was actually lower than it was the 3 weeks prior. So not a super positive difference. However, I did learn a few things throughout this experiment that helped me improve my sleep afterwards. First of all, blocking any light coming into the room from the outside. Second of all, making sure the room was cool when I went to sleep, which was kind of hard to do, but putting up these sheets on the window not only blocked the extra artificial light from cars passing by, but I found that it also helped keep the room cooler. And then I did find that maybe some medium between the floor stiffness and my bed softness would be the optimal sleep. So I think I need a new firm mattress, but because I wasn't just going to go out and buy one right away, a silly solution I found in the meantime was to stop sleeping more towards the center of the mattress and move more towards the edge of my mattress, because the edge of my mattress was less worn out than the middle and a little more firm. I know this sounds a little silly, but after applying these techniques the week after the sleeping on the floor experiment, I noticed I was starting to sleep better, but most importantly, I was waking up on average what seemed like a little bit taller. And at the very beginning of week 6, I had my tallest morning measurement yet. Now my end of the day measurement didn't seem to be moving as much as my morning measurement was, but it did seem like it might be going in the right direction. So hoping this trend upward in morning height wasn't just additional decompression, I wanted to search for an alternative explanation as to why my end of the day height wasn't keeping up with the rate of my increasing morning height, and I thought I may have found one. Posture. For I noticed over the past couple of weeks, it seemed like my posture was getting worse. I mean, worse than before. Maybe due to an increasing bad habit of slouching, or maybe due to trying to add too much to my plate and getting a little bit exhausted, and towards the end of the day, slouching much more. Either way, I was noticing towards the mid-afternoon, it always seemed like I was getting this super C curve at the computer, and then this would play on over into other daily activities as well. So around the halfway point of this experiment, I started implementing some old posture correcting exercises that I used to do quite frequently. Now the one I really found out addressed the problem I thought I was having, I started doing on the daily, and that was just laying over the top of a foam roller, feeling that stretch, that opening of the chest, and will hopefully undoing that slouch. Just kind of laying here for like 30 seconds at a time, I felt really helped me be able to sit up straighter easier. And then stepping it up further, wanting to completely avoid slouching at the computer, when I started to feel my back getting tired but wanted to power through work, I would strap on this posture assisting vest that I got from Amazon. It's not like super rigid or anything. I can hunch through it obviously, but it's like it's reminding me to keep my shoulders back. This is relaxed with, relaxed without. Like I feel like my shoulders are more rounded forward. So maybe this will help. Everything adds up. Consistently applying all of these techniques was actually becoming quite a bit, and for the first couple of weeks, just seeing my height fluctuate around was kind of discouraging. However, I continued to power through. But all of a sudden, into weeks 5, 6, and 7, my morning height started to consistently measure in taller.
We might be getting somewhere.
Now I stuck with everything the same for a few more days, but then I had an idea for improvement. You see, I felt like I was getting a lot of lower body decompression and potential bone stretch based on my theory, but I felt like I could use more to the upper half. So I actually retired the Get Taller table. I know. But I came up with this new system to also address the upper half. Using some pieces from the Get Taller table as well as my inversion setup, I anchored the resistance bands under a door, and then anchored this rope all the way towards the opposite end of the house, and used this bar to hold onto in kind of like this pull-up position as the resistance bands pulled on my lower half, and well, I got that upper body decompression holding onto the upper half. Now first of all, this actually ended up being way harder to set up and get the right tension all throughout, but after a few tries I did. Second of all, this was actually way harder to hold this position for long, but I found that if I really focused through it, I was able to get 20 minutes at a time.
Oh, the arms. Oh.
It was actually super grueling, specifically in my shoulders because I do have an injured shoulder, and just holding that position was very uncomfortable, but also just that entire stretch throughout. It was almost like a workout in itself, but I didn't want to tense up too much, you know? I wanted to stay loose, allow for that stretch for that hypothetical growth, you know? Now with this new technique for the first couple of days, I used it in place of my Get Taller table stretching session, as well as the inversion stretching session. However, I felt like the inversion on my little stair setup applied a different kind of stretch, and I wanted to add that back in, so I did. So I then did 15 minutes in my stretching apparatus and then 5 minutes inverting on the stairs. One more biohack I was already doing regularly that I decided to keep doing regularly was red light therapy. Now for this experiment, rather than doing my red light therapy sessions earlier in the day, I actually moved them to after my stretching sessions. This was to hopefully take advantage of the potential that red light might have on stimulating new cell growth and repair. And for the end of this experiment with my red light setup, I ended up doing 5 minutes on my lower half and 5 minutes on my upper half. Now after applying all of these techniques, taking my supplements, trying to get good nutrition, trying to get good sleep, I consistently was seeing a higher morning measurement. But what about the arguably more important midday measurement? The one everyone sees you at? Well, this measurement started at 181, and for the first couple of weeks throughout this experiment, I didn't notice any significant changes. In fact, there was a day or two where it was actually lower. However, staying consistent going into month 2, all of a sudden there were a few days midday, and by the way, these midday measurements were taken before I did any inversion or decompression, or well after, hours after I did my inversion or decompression session. Anyways, I started to notice a few millimeters difference in the upward direction, and this started to become consistent.
Okay, after working out, before doing any stretches or anything like that, this is later in the afternoon, 4:37 p.m. to be exact. So this is probably the shortest I'm getting all day. Boom. Boom! I think I'm a half a centimeter taller. Like totally, all over. I really do. I think I am. Like, check this out. So that's 181.5 basically. Did I just fix something that was already there? Is there a limit? Am I actually creating space and gaining permanent space? Will I have to keep up with these exercises continuously to maintain this? Can I go more? Is this an anomaly? Am I measuring like an idiot? What is going on? I don't know. You think I'm taller, right?
You seem taller.
She said it, folks. She does not give me a fake truth. She tells it like it is, and she says I seem taller, so.
Maybe you're just standing up straighter though.
That's a possibility, but I do try to stand up straight every time I measure, even in the beginning of this. Still got a few days left and then we'll totally measure in, but right now, feeling pretty confident that at least something happened. I have tons of thoughts right now, tons of thoughts.
With consistently taller morning measurements and fluctuating but on the upward trajectory mid-afternoon measurements, I continued with this ridiculous routine through the final week. And finally, at day 60, taking my final measurements, compiling all the data, did I actually get taller? What were my final thoughts, and what am I planning to do going forward after this experiment? Ladies and gentlemen, it is time for the results.
So according to my data, this actually worked. I actually got taller. So starting with my morning height measurement, taking the measurement every morning right after waking up, you can see I started at 183 centimeters, which is approximately like right at the 6 foot mark, maybe just a hair over. It was a little consistent. I had a little bit of a drop off, and then it started to look like it was going up. But I mean, the average still at 183 by week 2. The average right here, this is the average for the week, the prior week, 182.9. And going on, it looks like the average was kind of like decreasing almost a little bit. Blah, 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 blah. And then all of a sudden, like after week 6 of all this, it seemed like things started to consistently stay higher, and then ongoing. And then it's like things just seemed to like climb up to like the next half. So with that shift in data, you could be thinking like maybe it was just my posture that got better. But you got to keep in mind, every measurement I took from the morning to the mid-afternoon, from the beginning of this to the end of this, I always straightened myself up like as good as I could and tried to stand as tall as I could. So it's not just like I was like slouching on day 1 and then all of a sudden decided to stand up straight towards the middle of this. No, like I was always trying to get my highest height. So it's just like something maybe happened synergistically here. I don't know. Let me know what you think happened. I'm just showing you guys the results. I'm showing you guys the data I took and allowing you guys to
make your own conclusions here, but this is super interesting. And now you can see by day 60, 183.7 was the final measurement, averaging in 183.6 for that final week here, even though it didn't start and end on a specific, week, beginning and end. Boom, that is 0.7 centimeters higher than the beginning of this. That's over a half a centimeter higher. I know that's only like this much, but then check this out. After day 60, I stopped all those stretches, which I'm going to get to in a second about just how grueling this entire experiment was to do this for 60 days. But regardless, I was like, okay, I'm going to see what happens if I wait a week, if I do a week of measurements with no stretches. And look at every morning after that, basically trending down. All the way almost back to where I was. So I was basically 183 at the beginning of this, and then at the very end, after 1 week of not doing any more of the stretching, that's my morning measurement. Okay, but now real quick, more importantly, what about the midday measurement? I think that one is probably the most important because that's the one where it's like you're out and about. It's kind of like your true height. We can see started at 181 centimeters, like I said, and then yeah, I missed some data in here. I'm sorry about that, forgive me, but it was pretty much trending around 181 for quite a while, kind of down, kind of up. And you can argue some of that could be due to maybe taking it a little too soon, whatever. I tried to be consistent, like I said, but 181, 181. And then all of a sudden, look at this, around the same time, week 6, all of a sudden, like it starts to trend up as well. Basically correlated with those morning measurements going up. And all the way to day 60, 181.8, that's almost a full centimeter higher. Yeah, I know it took 60 days, but that was a midday measurement. That's like real height. You know what I'm saying? Like that's what I was in the day. Like that's crazy to me. And this is where things get really interesting in my opinion. After day 60, when I decided to do no more stretches, check this out. It starts trending down, but by the 7th day, it didn't go down nearly as much as the morning measurement did. So at first, it almost seemed like it was harder to get the midday to budge. And then at the end, I don't know, it's not going down as far. 181.3. So that's down about half a centimeter, but with a 0.3 gain overall. When the morning was down 0.6 of a centimeter with a 0.1 gain overall at the end of 1 week of no stretches. Let me know your opinion on that, but I'm guessing that if I continued to just not do any stretches and just kind of forget about this altogether, probably by a month or even less of just not doing anything, I'll probably be back to exactly normal or exactly where I was when I started this experiment. That's just my guess. Let me know what you think. So is that actually permanent height then? Well, remember when I mentioned in the voiceover when doing this video, when I was doing the inversion, how like when you work out, you get a pump, you work out, the muscles break down, they repair, and then your body adapts to that stress and you essentially can get bigger when you work out. Well, what happens when you stop working out? You shrink back down. Your body doesn't need all that extra strength, that muscle mass anymore, so it's like we don't need it, we're going to get rid of it. Well, what if the same thing is kind of happening here, where rather than just like a temporary decompression where you like decompress once and it's like, oh, I'm a half a centimeter taller, whatever, but then you lose it within like 30 minutes. Whereas in this experiment, doing so much consistently over every day, well, maybe I didn't exactly lose that a bit gained after that pump, you know what I'm saying? So it's like, yeah, I may have lost a little bit right after all my stretches, but I still had some that kept up with me. I had to be taller. I wanted to be taller. I made my body adapt to being taller. That's what I'm guessing maybe happened here. And then if I just stop with this for, like I said, a month, it'll probably all go back to normal or so, maybe long, I don't know. I'm kind of a bit like, this is crazy, you know what I'm saying? Like, this is crazy, but yeah. All right, now it's time to look at this graph. But for real, looking at this graph right here, this is my morning measurement tracked right here on a graph. You can see from the beginning to the very end, basically around here, in my opinion, that's a trend up. Yeah, it's slight, and yeah, these numbers are, close together. And then if we go to my midday measurements as well, you can see, in my opinion, that is a significant trend up. That's almost like more trending up than the morning was. Boom. Yeah, sorry there's some gaps in there, but that's just how it went. Just didn't take them some days. It was a long time, and that's something I want to get into now. It's like, first of all, in my opinion, if I kept doing this, could I get taller and taller and taller over years and years? I don't know, but if I'm guessing, I would say probably not. just like working out as a natural athlete especially, there's probably a limit one could get by, you know, getting the optimal posture, the optimal decompression, and just like the optimal everyday stretch. You know, perhaps would it be more than this? In my opinion, I would say yeah, probably a little bit more, but at a certain point, I don't think I would continue to get taller and taller. Or if I did, it would be so small on a daily, weekly, monthly basis that it would really amount to just a negligible amount over time. So that's just my thought about how this would go if I continued this. What do you guys think about that? Now, regarding continuing this, I gotta be real, I kind of just don't even want to, because just like keeping up with all this stuff on a daily basis for these last 2 months has literally been just grueling. Just like, it's been so much to do. I feel like it's just been so time consuming, but also I feel like it's just been like just so uncomfortable as well. Like the backs of my ankles are like permanently red now, first of all, from all that like ankle pulling with the cloth on my homemade setups that I've made all over the place. And my new stretch setup that I've been doing with like the arms over the head for 15 minutes is like, dude, it's so uncomfortable. Okay, here's the thing. I actually think I might continue to do some of these stretches, but not on a freaking daily basis like I have been, because it's like I need a break, you know what I'm saying? Like, it's just so much. And like I have other things I want to do and blah blah blah. I'm making excuses, but I hope you understand what I'm saying. Like, it was a lot. This whole entire video is probably one of the most efforts I've ever put into a video ever, perhaps. All right, before I just keep talking and talking, in conclusion, after 60 days, did I get taller? Based on my measurements, I did. Now, looking at the raw data, did I hit my goal? My goal was to be at 6 or over 6 foot midday. No, I did not actually get to the 6 foot mark, but I did get almost a full centimeter gain in that midday measurement, which in my opinion, now looking at everything, is astonishing. I'm pretty dang surprised. You gotta shoot for the stars sometimes. Sometimes it hit the moon. Where do you guys think that height was even gained? Was it like extra decompression, like in the joints and all the joints? Like that's what I'm guessing it probably was. And before I close this video, I just want to touch on this one more time. In my opinion, regarding being tall and success, I don't necessarily think it's a causation. After observing, I think there's something far more important, and I don't know how to put it into words. The best I can describe this as is like a stoic confidence. This like stoic confidence that people have that seems to just attract success. And I think that's far more important than height or even looks for that matter. But that's just my opinion based on what I've observed. Let me know your guys' thoughts. Hope you all enjoyed this video. Don't forget to stay tuned. Subscribe, more videos coming out. Hope you all have a great day. Peace. I will see you all in the next video.